Nuance. Noun. A subtle difference in or shade of meaning. Expression. Or sound.
Nuance. Noun. A subtle difference
Nuance.
in or shade of meaning.
Noun.
Expression.
A subtle
or sound.
difference in or shade of meaning.
Noun.
Expression.
A
or
subtle
sound.
difference in or shade of meaning,
Nuance.
expression, or sound.
Noun. A subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound.
To you by the I Member Media, Sonoran Desert Studios. This is Nuance. Without journalist Dr. Robert E. Alejandro Esquire, because I have gone and interviewed a friend of mine for this episode as a bonus. And so this is actually Nuance with Whiskey Congress podcast co-host Jim Lauka and me, Michael Wood Jr. And for our side of Nuance, welcome to the podcast about looking for the other side of the argument, bringing in the science, and chipping away at groupthink, biases, prejudices, and the limitations of perspective. Which is the reason why it's pretty good to have Jim Lauka join us for a discussion. It brings in a different perspective and a bit of a different tone for this. I'm going to have intro here and then doing an outro. I'm a little flustered myself because this is the third or fourth time I recorded this entire thing. Keep screwing up the recording, and I have no excuses. But when I wanted to this discussion that we're having here with Jim, we get into a lot of different things. What Jim does and how Jim and I ended up being friends is, I don't remember exactly how the connection came about, but a few years back when people were first hearing about me on social media, and I was doing a lot of social media talking about reforming of policing, that Jim is one of those that wanted to talk and discuss these issues and cared about it. And one way of contributing is he's ended up being able to give me a couch in Cleveland for me, my wife, and Avi, as we've gone around the country and tried to find ways to talk to people and meet with different ideas, hear different perspectives, and understand what is truly going on and what people want in our country and society for what I think is a much needed evolution in policing. And when you're fighting power, it's usually those that see it are the ones that really don't have the power to do much about it. And I think we're all in that boat. Roberto doesn't have resources. I don't have resources. Jim doesn't have resources. Avi doesn't have resources. But we're able to team up, and any of us can do that, to get these, to just help out in the little avenues that can be helped out in as a society. That's what we do great as human beings, is cooperate. So I hope we all appreciate Jim and the little subtle ways that he's made things possible, that people end up seeing my face on TV, but it's really a lot of other people's work that help make those things happen, and I end up being kind of an end result versus the true issues and causes. I'm just an equation, and as we all are, people are the equations of their DNA plus their experiences, and those experiences come from others. In this discussion, we go over a lot of things on their podcast. They have one called Whiskey Congress, as I just mentioned a second ago, but they review a whiskey of their selection and then rate it, which I find interesting, even though I don't drink a lot. If I do drink something, it's usually going to be a whiskey, which I like something like any whiskey fan out there that drinks a lot. A Bullet, I think, is like a very well-rounded type. I like an oaky, dry type of whiskey. And so they get into all the differences of what those are, and then talk about the social narrative things, what's in the media, what's going on in the news of the day while they end up drinking, which ends up being fun because by half the episodes are a little sauced. What word am I looking for? Sauced by the end of the episode, which is always fun to hear people try to be serious when they're don't have all the mental things firing on the proper cylinders, like I ever do anyway. But it's more fun when it's completely obvious. So in this the podcast, a lot of what we're talking about in our discussion is referencing one of their most recent podcasts, which I encourage you to go check out and listen to. And any of the same formats that we can find any podcasts on. But the last discussion was talking about things like guns, what the arguments are, some of the facts about death penalty, and my positions as a very gun control person, which pretty much everybody is. It's just a matter of where you draw the line. I think a lot of these issues are relatively known, and we kind of get caught up in narratives about what guns are and the benefits to having them around. For example, we talk about resource officers being in schools, and these types of ideas of schools almost essentially being like prisons is a type of tyranny that I just keep seeing people root for, and the government root for, and people that are supposed to be conservative root for, and I find that a really scary thing that I wish we could approach more honestly, like Jim does here, and I appreciate that he does that. We talk about Israel and Palestine issues with the embassy riots in a section that is a Whiskey Congress thing called Come At Me Bro. So we talk about that in one of my challenges to Jim that I'll challenge him about is the narrative around the Palestine-Israel thing. While generally I am very pro-Palestinian rights, I'm a little off-put, to say the least, on the concept that of the last embassy protesting, which doesn't seem like embassy protesting to me, but it doesn't line up with a lot of the just readily surface logic things that people would be willing to die over the location of an embassy, and that for some reason because someone is oppressed, that your national walls don't mean anything and they can just run into your country. That doesn't make any sense at all to me either. So we get into a little bit of the nuance about that, and we do a little section called that's what they call it, Come At Me Bro, in that section. And then we come in and look at a little bit of, we listen to two songs that I asked Jim to pick one for, because I felt that certain bands were really influential in just broadening my perspective, music as a pathway to kind of seeing different angles that go beyond your experiences. And so music was extremely important to me, and I kind of got out of it, like I get out a lot of things from time to time, and recently I've gotten back into appreciating music and the benefits that it provides. So I'm very interested or it's like, now that I think about it, it's like me saying that I'm interested in having other people listen to the things that I'm interested in, but I guess that is fundamentally all of what this is, and is at a core level rather arrogant or presumptuous, preposterous, pompous, maybe, I don't know. But he had me listen to a cover of the Cranberry song Zombie by Bad Wolves, which ties in very nicely with the conversation that we're having about Israel and Palestine, and even ties back to much of policing's roots because of how the revolution and the American Revolution and how the revolutionary forefathers were viewed, and how we view them versus how we view other people who are textbook definition. The American revolutionaries were terrorists to Britain. So one man's hero is another man's terrorist, or one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. It's very much a true statement, and I wonder what that means in today's context. How will we see that 100 years from now? What will the narratives be about the people who we are told terrorists? Those are the things. I don't know. I feel as though we get misled a lot, and I don't want people to be skeptical of everything, because that just gets you nowhere. But to be critical of everything, I mean, it applies to me too, of course. Don't listen to anything I say. It's just an open context. Go ahead, explore it, check it up, challenge me. This is what we have to do. We shouldn't be insulted by those processes. And the song that I had Jim listened to was Kill Pop by Slipknot, and Slipknot being one of those bands that was very influential and omnipresent in my teen years growing up, and that has really stuck with me, and a band that I think has gotten much better over time from being a very good band when I was younger. So please enjoy the interview. It is a rather long one, about an hour and a half, I think we talked. And I'm pretty sure that's not how sentence structure is supposed to go. But please check out Whiskey Congress to see more of their work, and eventually we will be, I'll talk about I Remember Media in the outro. So after this, come back and we'll talk about, wrap up this interview and point out a few things, and then we will talk a minute about where I Remember Media is going and how many of these podcasts are going to be out, what we're trying to do as a partnership here, since we don't have help, and how we can do it ourselves. And I don't know. That's it. Enjoy. The bottom line is that money makes things happen. Time truly is money. That is what it represents. It takes a lifestyle to put out these materials, and the system has no desire to allow us to pay our bills. Many of us are in that boat these days. The good news is that, seriously, time is money. If you have no time and too much money, please donate to the Patreon, to Stay Up News, or to I Remember Media. If you have no money and some time, that is every bit as helpful and valuable. To me, it is priceless for you to share this and other critical thinking with everyone you know, and to have those challenging conversations. StayUp.News is a revolutionary media project that seeks to document social and political issues through hip-hop, amplifying the voices of persons from sectors of society that often go ignored in the process of news gathering, and doing so in a language that is intimately familiar to them. Stay Up News seeks to use hip-hop as a tool for exploring social and political issues and centering the voices of persons living those issues, thus allowing them to express themselves in their own language and allowing the audience to determine their own responses to those issues on the basis of having heard directly from those most impacted. The amount and quality of extensive news, background, podcasts, and interviews on Stay Up is an example of dedicated excellence.
Ready?
Word.
Welcome to a special edition of Whiskey Congress. Actually, it's a Whiskey Congress Nuance collaboration, because on the phone with me, yikes, I haven't even started drinking yet. On the phone with me from the state of Arizona is my buddy Michael Wood Jr. Mike, how you doing, man?
I am doing wonderful. It is great to do a collaboration. You know, I've seen a lot of people start to do this, so I figured why not? We may as well. We talk to each other enough, so why not bring other people into our chaos?
Exactly. I was thinking about it that I'm in North Carolina, you're in Arizona, so I'm in a hot, humid place, you're in a hot, dry place, and unfortunately I'm not at home in my Cleveland studio, so I've got a weird setup in my hotel room, but it is what it is. We traded some, or I woke up to some text messages about our last episode regarding the Texas shootings, and I do want to give you a chance or I do want to talk to you about that. But I saw, I think it was on your Facebook page, a split screen of you and Colion Noir from the NRA, and that was a tease like you were going to be on the Joe Rogan show together. Is that going to happen?
Oh my God, no. The reason that I did that is just, I don't know, I'm still pressing the buttons about this gun control thing because I have so many people commenting, and they're tagged me in things saying this gun proponent says they'll debate anyone, go ahead to, step up and tell them you want to debate. And I do that all the time, and then the people won't actually debate even though they're saying that they're going to debate. So somebody told me that Colin Noir, Colion Noir, whatever it is, said
Right.
that on Joe Rogan, he said he would do a debate, and that was always a big deal for me because I've been a little bit personally pissed at Rogan and a couple of other people when it comes to the gun debate thing, because it was a big deal with me being on there that I wanted to have this debate, and he said he could get so many people to debate me, and nobody has debated me. Nobody's volunteered to go onto the show and actually do this debate, but Colin Noir said that he would do it. But the pictures that I captured on the Instagram is when Joe says, I'll set up a debate, The truth is I'm ready. You can see in our faces, I'm smiling. I'm like, yes, come on, give me some fresh meat. And when he says it's a Coleon Noir, his eyes get big, and he's like, "Huh? You're actually going to set up a debate?" Like, yeah, bitch, let's do the debate. You know, that's really how I feel about it.
So I, as you know, I'm a big fan of Rogan's podcast, and I listened to Coleon Noir on there. And when he said that, Joe Rogan was saying, if I can come up with somebody, and I'm thinking, all right, maybe, to be fair, Joe Rogan's a bit older than me. My memory is sometimes bad. Joe Rogan smokes more pot than you. That can allegedly affect memory, too. So maybe you weren't at the top of my... What's that?
He couldn't smoke me for an hour. That dude couldn't hang with me.
Two gauntlets being thrown down.
I'll do that one in the air, too.
I'm sure you would. And I'm sure you would, too. But in all seriousness, though, I would love to see that happen. He did say, I'll debate anybody who's claimed that he can't get anyone to come on with him. And the one thing, I know you don't need my help in this, but I don't know, when's the last time you've been to a gun show, if ever?
Oh, of course I've been to gun shows. I mean, I don't understand, like, even you.
No.
But you didn't know me back then.
Weird culture.
But you didn't know me back then. I get that. But I know this cool. Like, I've been to 20 gun shows.
Okay. So Coleon Noir said, if guns are so dangerous, then a gun show should be the most dangerous place in the world, and they're completely safe. And I'm like, okay, dude, total false narrative. Because one, try carrying concealed in a gun show. They tell you can't. Two, try walking in with a gun to a gun show. They stick a zip tie through the action and completely disable it. So I didn't know if you've gone to gun shows and had that happen to you, but everyone I've gone to, they inspect every firearm that goes in. Like I said, they disable it with a zip tie through the action, and you are breaking the law if you carry a gun, even if you have a legit concealed carry permit, in a gun show. So all these folks who say guns make you safe, when you're around them, they change their tune a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I honestly think that that's the reality of it. People know that when you really press this issue, it's a tough argument to make, to be pro Second Amendment as it's interpreted as it's interpreted as something to fight against the government, but the idea that even means that everybody can go around carrying guns just creates an environment that you're just not going to win the argument.
Well, again, you and I have talked about this for the couple of years we've known each other. I'm a gun guy, but I'm also a logical human being who could say, all right, you can't deny certain things. And so if we can transition from that into you had some texts for me. I don't think I woke up to them. I think I got off a plane and saw that you'd kind of blown my phone up, and I think it was over Steve and I talking about putting metal detectors in schools and putting additional resource officers in schools, and I think your point was that more police and more police patting people down has not made things better. Am I reading you correctly?
Well, I mean, I guess we're going to kind of blend our topics, because the way we were intending on doing this is that you were going to lead this for 30 minutes and then I was going to lead this for 30 minutes. But most of my bitches are pretty much the things
what I'm talking about.
So I guess we could kind of blend it in a way. So what you're talking about there, and why I get so animated with a lot of these things when it comes to what we're supposed to do about guns, is because your arguments, no offense, I'm not trying to attack you, I'm attacking your arguments, are arguments that are pro-tyranny. You argue to make people be under surveillance and to have police searching through your children and going through their things and having fenced off areas and having guns around everybody, when the real just truth of the matter is that there isn't a mystery. It is all about the guns and all about the access to guns, and any other argument other than that we can explore, but I find them relatively weak. And then what happens is because those arguments are so weak, we kind of, I believe, that we kind of double down into that false sense of security that police make us feel better and make us feel safe, but that is just not the reality of what happens. The moment that you start putting kids in cops around in a school, let's go for example. So I get pissed off because I feel like people don't listen to me, and you guys are friends with me. But the fourth correlate to violent crime is the police. you are literally adding an element of harm and risk to your children. The odds of all the kids being in danger from a gun goes up exponentially, and then we will know that the cops will imprison those children. They will start enforcing laws on them in the order of safety and then marginalizing them, so you create more crime. Policing creates the problem that you're in. It's not the solution.
You know, I thought about after I got so like I said, I got off a plane. I saw you'd blown my phone up pretty good, and honestly, so little inside baseball. Last weekend was a whirlwind for me. I drove all over creation. Flew from North Carolina, went to Ohio, drove to West Virginia, and back in the same day. Recorded the night before, and was pretty tuned up by the time I got on there. So I didn't remember what it was. And then I thought, oh shit, I better listen to this because I'm going to talk to Mike about it. And I completely understand what you're saying, and I thought it was kind of interesting to think of because we, on our show, have talked multiple times about in inner cities where a resource officer would just beat the fuck out of a 16-year-old kid, sometimes a 16-year-old girl in school. And that's obviously horrific. You know, you got an armed, trained police officer beating up a female child in front of her classmates. And I remember one incident, I think it happened in Texas, it could have been South Carolina, I don't remember for sure, where literally the class just kind of sat there like going through their work. It's not that I expected the children to intervene, it was their lack of shock that bothered me. So that's definitely a valuable element to the argument that here's where it doesn't make life better on a day-to-day basis. But you know, I've got a lot of friends. Go ahead.
Even the idea that the cop can keep you safe, though, is just, it does not align to reality at all. We do these things like...
It didn't happen in Parkland, did it?
Right, it doesn't happen in a lot of these places. The number one reason why these shooters are stopped are by somebody that's unarmed, that just grabs them, a teacher or something like that. The second reason they're stopped is by suicide. It's like, I mean, the third reason is they escape and they get apprehended, and the fourth is that they actually get shot or stopped by a resource officer. But those resource officers, like, even if you get down to it, and they stop 10 school shootings, so they kill 10 students, maybe save 10 students, and then what really ends up happening is that those police officers all around the nation, they end up costing billions of dollars, and then even more into our criminal justice system, because when there's nobody to shoot, all they're going to do is arrest children and prosecute them, put them into the prison industrial complex, and then you give people reason to go shoot the fucking school.
So then, what about this as an alternative? Because you do have to have authority figures in the school, right? Even if it's, you know, gym teachers and, like, when I was in high school...
Yeah, but dude, their authority figures are still there. Where do they go?
Well,
what do you mean?
Well, no, hold on, let me say that. Gym teachers guarding metal detectors.
Yeah, it's retardedness. I mean, I just...
Well, no, I'm seriously. Because metal detectors stopping guns from getting into the school strike me as a good idea. If instead of
why does that strike you as a good idea?
Because it's better than nothing.
But I don't understand why you say. But why is it better than nothing? You're saying it's better than nothing. But what does that mean? So everyone in the school we know doesn't have a gun. So now when when somebody goes to shoot there, they can definitely be more impugned. That's the whole reverse argument of saying that teachers want gun in school. So this is why I get pissed off. You guys have to.
I did not mean armed gym teachers.
No. But what I'm saying was they want armed resource officers or armed teachers in these arguments as just a gun proponent group. So the logic was then that guns make things safer. But then you say, well, those kids will be vulnerable. There should be no gun-safe zone. So it's just like, what do you want? You guys have to find a philosophy. Is it guns make things safer, or is it no guns make things safer?
I didn't say guns. I said metal detectors.
Yeah, but the metal detector is then to keep guns out of the school. Right. So I thought that the whole gun proponent position was that guns make things safer. So why are you trying to keep them out?
Well, I'm not saying guns make schools safer.
Well, it's a devil's advocate argument. So if you think the police are going to make them safer, then that's what you're saying.
No, I'm admitting. I'm retracting the police. I'm saying put the metal detectors in there, but instead of having police officers and metal detectors, have gym teachers and vice principals and metal detectors, unarmed school authorities.
But do you think there's evidence that metal detectors stop shootings?
I think metal detectors stop guns from getting into places. I go through an airport twice a week.
Yeah, but is it the metal detector that's doing that, or is it the whole everything else that's involved?
Look.
Right.
See,
So if somebody wants to go shoot an airport up, are they saying, "Oh no, there's metal detectors"?
I'm not saying people won't try because of a metal detector. I'm saying they'll be identified at the door rather than taking a tactical
No,
position.
why would
before
they just shoot everybody? I don't understand.
What's that?
Nobody takes the gun into the school. You start from the outside. So you walk in, then you blast the two people who are standing by the door, and you just walk in the store shooting. I don't understand.
But the loud noise made by the metal detector is probably a deterrent.
No, I mean, there's just no reason to believe that a metal detector is a deterrent. That's a claim.
Thank you for recognizing the sarcasm.
But that's a claim, you know. The claim is being made that metal detectors make the school safer. And I've never seen evidence remotely pointing to that, and it doesn't even seem logical that it would make it safer.
So I know where you stand on, moving forward with guns in America. I believe your basic point is let's stop the flow in. Whatever you have now becomes more valuable because it's now a commodity that isn't just getting dumped onto the country. And if I say anything wrong, I know I don't have to ask you to correct me, but please do. So if that's the case, we're looking at 2, 3, 4 generations of hopefully improvement, but gradual improvement, right?
For if we restrict the manufacturing of guns?
Manufacture and entry of guns from other countries.
I don't know how long it would take. It could be faster than we would expect, but I mean, giving it some kind of drawn-out effect, we would be reducing gun saturation significantly. I don't know. It'd probably take 150 years to not see him on the streets, and it would probably take somewhere around 20 years from then to be not really be something that you see in criminal activity.
All right. I mean, that's speculation, but...
Yeah, it's total speculation, but I think when you're talking about longevity, you're talking about the lifetime, so weapons just really last a long time. They're made solidly.
That's one of the problems is whenever people talk about this, they always want to come up with that instant fix that, there is no instant fix to this. We have 300 and some million guns in this country. You own a few of them. I own a few of them. So it's not like we're...
There are instant fixes.
What's that?
There are instant fixes. I mean, Australia demonstrated how you do an instant fix.
Do you think that would work here?
Of course, and I hate the argument where people say it wouldn't. I mean, whether you could convince the people to do it or not, I don't know.
That's what I mean.
It's just a matter of money, though. I mean, you can at least do something, but if you don't stop manufacturing, it does no good. So the only reason gun buybacks do no good is because there's no cutoff, It's just
funding an industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's pointless. You're literally funding the gun manufacturers when you do gun buybacks without restricting the supply. So you have to do both, of course. So if you did a gun buyback, I bet you offer twice their value, then half of them are off the street in a week.
Again, that's a culture. The culture is different. You have to speculate a little bit.
We always do that. We do this thing where the culture is different, like human beings are dramatically different, and they're just not dramatically different. Human beings react the same way under the same stimuluses of the environment. So our politicians are the ones that stop these things from moving forward. If we had a different political setup and you had referendums or something like that, it's clear that you would get something like this accomplished.
The only reason I would argue with that point is I think Americans in general, the Americans who would resist that mentality, are so dug in on so many flawed arguments.
I don't care.
So many. Okay, well, if
fine.
If the buyback is voluntary, and I don't know if it is or not. I mean.
We don't have an epidemic of redneck hillbillies with their 40 guns running around shooting people. I'm not that concerned about that.
That's a good point. I mean, one of the arguments that the NRA folks make is these shootings don't occur by NRA members, and I don't know the statistics on that, but for the most part, I'm sure it's true. Certainly when a 19 or 17-year-old student is doing it, they're not card-carrying NRA members. So
It's also like we always frame things in really ridiculous ways. It's also just like the reason why poor kids in urban areas don't have AR-15s to shoot up schools. These people can't afford the NRA membership.
True. Well, and
I'm sorry.
and
I mean, you don't have a lot of rich kids doing this shit.
they're also not the other big Cullion Noir thing. In fact, probably his biggest thing as a black NRA spokesperson is, you know, the NRA isn't racist, and he'll make a bunch of points about how the liberal media will call it that. What's that?
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either, and not as an organization. Now, having been a member of gun clubs in rural Ohio, the NRA may not be racist, but the NRA membership is forced on people in groups where racism is certainly not frowned upon.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, that could be.
I know it's true of at least one place.
No, I mean of actual NRA memberships, though. Like, a lot of people act like they're in those clubs, but are they really officially through? Do they attend the things, or do they just put a sticker on their car? I think those things are very different.
Well, I know that the club I belong to in the Cleveland area, in order to join it, I had to produce a valid NRA card, one that I did not have prior to choosing to join that club. So literally they said, we are a 100% NRA membership club. If you want to shoot your bow here and shoot your guns here, you need to have an active membership. And I don't think that's right.
Did you just call them all a bunch of racists?
No, yeah, I did. No. Yeah, Mike, I stood up and said, I'm going to make a point that these guys are going to understand and agree with, and they'll make the world a better place. No, I bought my card and joined the club and shot my bow.
But were they really racist? I mean, that is
no.
the things that I keep butting up
Actually, the club I was talking about was actually in southern Ohio. And I'm not saying that, like, it's not like being a racist was a requirement of the club. I can say that I was in the club when shit was getting said that made me uncomfortable, and I would not, like, you know, speak out and try to have a 12 against 1 argument saying what you're saying is stupid. And, you know, when you live in it was actually Clinton County, Ohio, and you get a couple guys talking about, you know, shit in the inner city, and I'm thinking, you have not set foot outside of your 3 houses per square mile neighborhood in 10 years. Anything you know about inner city is what you saw on the news, and you probably didn't even see that. You probably heard it from Rush Limbaugh, and just the level of ignorance is amazing. I know we talked we talked last week, and I was telling you a little bit about where I'm at right now, and I was really tuned up by the end of the conversation. So I don't remember exactly what I told you, but I'm in a majority black city right now, in a majority black workplace, and it's a bunch of really nice, very rural people, but you know, the perception that gets out there in the eyes of predominantly white rural areas is so misguided and flawed, and it's frustrating to me, and frankly, on a selfish level, it doesn't even affect me. I just hear it and see it, and I see enough of the, you know, things that get said, and then the realities of the world, and it's depressing, actually.
I can't disagree with you. It's just I feel as though over the last few years I've come to see it a little differently. I think what comes out of people's mouths is these bad things, but what's really going on inside is relatively the same things for everybody, and they're repeating narratives that I don't think they actually truly believe in. It's like talking about God. Like, everybody goes to the church and they all sit around singing these hymns like they actually believe this shit. They don't. But it's part of what is the socially, it's like almost small talk for that particular kind of environment.
You know, I know you're a devout atheist. I've had a real, I don't want to say crisis of faith, because that's too dramatic a term.
Well, you should.
Actually, well, you know, Mike, I mean, this is a little more than I've talked about on air, but I've stopped going to church, not because I don't. I'm glad I was raised Catholic. I think it helped me be a better person. You know, I've heard you on. Oh gosh, I forget. I think I remember what it was, but I don't want to be wrong, so I won't say it. But I heard you say once that, someone said, well, do you think the teachings of Jesus are wonderful? And you said, yeah, but, if the teachings of Harry Potter are wonderful, that doesn't make them bad teachings, just not necessarily a real story. Now, I might not 100% agree with that, but I have lost a lot of faith in organized religion, and I've stopped going to church and just kind of focusing on my, personal stuff and trying to be decent and be reasonable. And you and I have also disagreed a fair bit about the impact of Donald Trump. Well, watching the evangelical crowd just fold tents and suck up to Donald Trump made me realize, okay, there is so much bullshit. And yeah, I knew it for a long time, but that was just okay, this is a bridge too far for me.
Well, I mean, on a positive note, I would say, do you know who else had a real problem with organized religion and didn't go to church? Jesus.
Yeah, you're right.
You're
right.
What my kind of general saying is that if you Christians actually acted like Jesus, you would not get complaints out of me. I'd be like, yeah, whatever, you weirdos, and I would be perfectly happy.
How many rounds in his Glock do you think Jesus would have wanted?
Exactly. He wouldn't have had any. He wouldn't have said that he needed a gun to protect his family and needed a Second Amendment God-given rights, because I just don't think that that's really the case. I strive my best to be atheist.
I think it's. You know what? I was trying to come up with a snarky joke there, and I just completely fumbled that could have been good if I could come up with a quick draw.
Isn't Leviticus even the Old Testament anyway?
Yeah, Yes, it is, but I didn't. I wanted to sound smart and say something stupid, and I managed to only accomplish one of those things.
Well, I was an altar boy. I went to Catholic school for a while. I've read that Bible inside and out. I explored it, and as soon as anyone actually explores it, you go, "Oh my God, shut up."
Well, so you were Catholic?
I mean, I went to Catholic school and was,
okay.
But
because that's weird. A Catholic who read the Bible, we don't do that shit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I don't think I didn't read it then. I read it later.
Honest, a funny story. I have a friend that I worked with when I was in Southern Ohio, and she was maybe the most passionate atheist I've ever met, and she knew the Bible better than anyone I knew, and it was just hysterical how. Because she was brought up in that environment and eventually said, okay, I believe in all these things. This is a woman who would, volunteer weekends working in animal shelters. I mean, she was just a wonderful person. But, like I said, a devout atheist who knew the Bible inside and out. It was hysterical when an occasional Bible thumper would challenge her on a biblical quote. She would say, well, actually, that's not what that chapter says, and then just spit it out, and I would sit there going, okay, what she said.
Well, the good news is
the good news, Mike, that's what you need.
It is, the good news is what you need. Have you heard the good news? Why do they do that anyway? If only 175,000 people are getting to heaven, according to the Jehovah's, why the hell would you tell anybody? That shouldn't be your secret. You're just, lowering your odds so dramatically. I don't get it.
Have you heard the fake news, is my question.
I think it's all fake news.
That was a combination political joke and religious joke.
Well, it's all fake news. I don't know what the actual difference is. I would certainly argue that what is coming out of left-wing media and what comes out of right-wing media is no different than those very same religions that we're disparaging at the moment.
I rarely get dragged into religion disparaging. Well done, sir. We're about at a transition point.
I know. I was going to say, you're out of time.
All right, I'll turn it over. Do you want to do a quick come at me, bro, or just transition?
No, I was going to do the come at me, bros, afterwards because we're still kind of on the same plane. So there was just a few things that I picked out that I wanted to address. And sure, I'm picking on you, but it's just like if I pick on your arguments, I'm not trying to pick on your arguments. I'm trying to just make the argument for others to hear.
I love how you got kid gloves on now. When we're talking on the phone, there's none of that.
No, I guess see.
I respect that.
So I do hear a lot people say, well, you need to bite your tongue once in a while, Michael. You need to soften your tones and how you say things. And since you guys have begun to know me more, they should start to realize at some point in time that I bite my tongue so much, and I really do soften my language. This is as soft as I can get. So,
no, you're doing good. Good.
So the first thing that I wanted to discuss is I do have this whole thing with tyranny. It's a big thing that came up in all my writing, and I had never really thought of the concept of tyranny and what it really meant. And that's something that our founding fathers were really big on. And getting into that history from writing Crimes and Punishments, it really changed my perspective about what this means. So when you hear something like a gun control person or anybody with a government argument saying something like, why are we not talking about mental illness? Which is really dumb, because all anybody ever fucking talks about is the mental illness, saying what they're not talking about it. That's fucking ridiculous. But the bottom line is that when you're saying, what are we doing about mental illness? Why aren't we looking at the people that have these problems? What you're arguing for is using state violence to control the actions of the citizens of a nation. And that sounds like incredible Orwellian tyranny to me. I am interested in a government that regulates objects. That is a fundamental reason why I want to restrict the guns. I do not want to restrict your activity. I think it is much more important that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not that we have objects which ruin that ability to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, so that it takes priority, and it takes a moral priority, to use the violence of policing to regulate a factory building instead of regulating the activities of human beings. I think that is super dangerous and very authoritarian, and to hear that coming from conservatives, it really highlights to me that none of us have any clue why we're doing or saying the things that we're saying.
All right, so let me I actually was thinking about this the other day because of one of the most annoying, stupid things that captured the news in recent weeks, and that is the royal wedding. I give zero fucks about the royal wedding, and I offended a few coworkers at a happy hour the other day, saying that the only reason I care about anything there is if there's a nuclear strike during the wedding, which I'm not rooting for, but that's the only thing that would make it interesting for me. Yes, I was being dramatic for purpose of making a point, but the fact is that represents a group of people that used to be literally the entire country was under the thumb of a family and to some degree a person, and that's not that long ago. I mean, it's 500 years or, well, shit, not even that.
This is a tie-in to our song.
What's
so
that?
Don't forget this. This is a tie-in to our talking about the songs later.
Okay. So, I'm going to be honest. When you said let's choose songs, I thought you wanted me to pick the squarest white guy song ever for the purpose of making fun of me.
That would be up to you.
What's
that?
Up to
you if you want to pick a square white guy
my musical taste is very bizarre. And I'm not a huge, passionate music guy. And sometimes that gets mistaken by people as like, I don't like music. I'm not a monster. Music is fantastic. It's just not something that like I, talk about a lot. But yeah, if you take a step back and look at the situation in the world right now, so much of the world is on fire. I mean, the Middle East is disastrous. A lot of Asia is disastrous. And one thing that kind of bugs me, and if I'm jumping topics too far, I apologize, but I talk to my friends who are generally, the friends I'm talking about now are on the right-wing side. And generally they live very comfortable, very safe lives. They're the first ones to say, I'm not going to, I had a friend the other day that posted on Facebook that he's not going to go to Buffalo Wild Wings anymore because they put out an anti-gun policy, and if they don't want us to be safe, he's not going to go there anymore. And of course, his friends, some of whom I also know, piled out and said, they're trying to take away our freedoms. And I thought, when's the last time anyone protected themselves in a Buffalo Wild Wings with anything up to a bottle of hot sauce or the challenge to try this? I am not wealthy by any means. You've been to my house. Wealth is not the word you would think of.
It depends on your perspective. You are the top 1% of the world.
That was my point. that was where I was going to go, is I'm extraordinarily lucky. I mean, and lucky, and I'm not trying to pawn it off that I don't deserve any credit for whatever, but I live an extremely comfortable, extremely safe, extremely blessed life. And there's lots of people who are way better off than me who act as though they are under the boot of oppression, when in fact a lot of the world legitimately is. And I don't even know where I'm going at this point, but it's amazing to me how many people who are living incredibly comfortable, incredibly safe lives are furiously angry at some combination of the media and the government and act as though they are under the boot of oppression that's just waiting for the next shoe to drop, and their reality button just ain't working.
Well, they are to a certain extent, they do have a boot of oppression on them. All Americans do under capitalistic structure. That is what capitalism is. You take from others and you build upon and get riches clustered towards the top. That's literally the idea behind it. Listen to you vibrating, unprepared. But
sorry.
So what I was going to say to that is that I get where you're coming from. I just think we're all caught in these narratives that other people are supplying us. Like when I was picking out issues from the things I heard before, you guys were discussing the death penalty about one of these things, and we're saying that, and I wanted to clarify that the death penalty cannot be applied to juveniles and the mentally ill. And then you transitioned into saying, you guys, just as a group, that these mental illness issue, and then what should we do about it? And even if we take that idea of mental illness, the biggest thing we can do for them is to not have a bunch of guns laying around that they have access to them. It's literally about access to guns. There is no other data points that our problem can be attributed to.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and so when we're talking about mental illness, I really want us to get the idea away from this. I don't think mental illness is a real thing. The body and the mind cannot be separated. And when things are going wrong, there's almost always a physical injury of some sort. Just because it's how the thyroid is reacting or how a certain gland is reacting or a chemical is going through the body, that doesn't really mean it's mental and body separated. These are just biological issues that people are going through. And so that fight or flight response, when you're talking about how somebody plans something out or whether it's instantaneous, you get these ideas, and Steve said it, where you view it as a snapping. And that is just a wrong way of looking at it. There's no specified time frame for how long a mental break from norm it takes with your consciousness. So that we have to really change our perspective on what we're saying. So say someone has a biological imbalance, it doesn't just snap. There is a long process. We shouldn't have timelines attached to that.
Here's one thing that I know it gets said a lot, but I do, and I think it's legitimate. And you can bounce back with where's the data, and I don't know if the data is available, but the number of people, not just people who shoot up schools or do other bad things, but the number of people in this country who are on legitimately described drugs that dissociate them from reality is, you're a data guy, and I respect that, so I won't even try to make a database argument. I will say it is something that really needs to be analyzed, and the data needs to get out there. Because
but understand that every single data point that we have in the United States is correlated to crime reduction, right? We continue to have crime reduction.
That's true.
Right, so even if you say more people are in drugs, it's only correlated to lesser crime.
All right, but total crime, and the thing that I'm reacting to in the last episode of Whiskey Congress is just school shootings are something that
I don't believe that's true either.
What's that, number of school shootings are up?
I don't think so.
Where are you starting your timeline? If you're starting 20 years ago, I guarantee they're up.
I mean, I don't know. I heard you guys say this before, and do you know when the biggest mass killing in a school took place?
Biggest, I would think Columbine.
1968. In a
What happened in
Bath school, it was a bombing with 68 kids killed.
Where did that occur?
Let me see. I actually have my computer up. So
Uh-oh.
Bath school. God damn it.
But even if it's not the biggest single event,
Bath school 1927. I was wrong.
where?
Michigan. Bath Township, Michigan.
Bath Township, Michigan. How many deaths?
38.
Okay. But, all right. So it's 38 people killed in Bath, and I know we neither of us prepared the data, and we're not really on different sides of this issue, I don't think. But Bath County, Michigan, in 1927, 38 kids get killed in a bombing. How long until the next multi-death school incident? Because
you don't have the data though. So every time, so it's like the police shooting data. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, what does this mean? We're going to see some trend lines." And as we've gone back and got the data, it seems to just be about 1,000 or so every single year, going back to as far as we can tell.
Again, I don't have the data.
Right here, school shootings are not the new normal, despite statistics that stretch the truth. That's a USA Today article. It's just like typing it in real quick comes up with. I've never seen any indicator that school shootings are on a rise or mass shootings.
So you think it's just more media coverage? I can't refute what you're saying. It certainly seems to me like the number of multi-death school shootings just keeps going up and up and up. And it almost seems like it's becoming a...
Yeah, you might have more casualties.
And I've got multiple friends and family members who are in the education industry, and many of them are saying, like, all right, what's next? And I can tell you this. When I went to school a long time ago, get your free joke in there, the thought of someone coming into my school and shooting me never entered my mind. But the idea of getting nuclear bombed was, and that was just as ridiculous. Yeah, it was definitely real. We had drills.
Yeah, every single kid in this country was running afraid of a nuclear weapon that almost had no chance of occurring. Fear just doesn't correlate to anything of accuracy.
It's funny you say that, because one thing that we as Americans tend to think of is, the evil bad guys out there that are out to get us, and certainly there are entities and organizations that want to do harm to America because of, our policies and our history and whatever, and I won't debate good, bad, right, wrong at this point. But what always gets lost is what's going on the other side, and what I'm really thinking of right now, North Korea is such a strange outlier that I don't even want to really get into it, but Iran is something I'm really passionate about. Because I know a little bit about Iran.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
I don't?
No, you don't. The well-read are misinformed and the unread are uninformed. I mean, this is Samuel Clemens going back throughout time. That's my whole problem. And so when you guys were arguing about some of the things that we should do with schools, you also said about being like Israel in that constant state of paranoia. Like that's something that we would possibly want for our people. It's that same kind of thing. I don't think any of this stuff is really there.
Well, let me finish my point on Iran, because I think we're actually going to be on the same page. I know a bit about Iran as knowing...
You're the worst.
I am. You know what? I turned off the other phone. I thought I had this thing on. Whatever. Steve would have lost his fucking mind by now if I done it 3 times. It won't... Anyway.
It's all right.
I'm old and I don't know the technology. Now, the average Iranian today at 8 o'clock their time was thinking way more about their commute to work and their daily life than they were about anything related to conflict, their government, America, whatever. The reason I'm so passionate about Iran is Iran has a relatively educated, young, progressive population, and their government is essentially dominated by religious, well, calling them religious fanatics would be a generous term, and you'll light me up for that because they're really opportunists using religion. But
of course they are.
That's fucking everywhere, and that's why despite my, until recently, I was pretty aggressively is the wrong word. I was pretty much an inline Catholic, but even then, I was very much about keeping religion out of government. And the reason, again, I'm so passionate about Iran is I believe that their population, if they had their way, would say, enough of this religion bullshit. Let's talk about feeding people, getting jobs, getting people taken care of, and practice your religion on your own time. The people in power use religion as a way to bludgeon their population. And I think Iran is one of the few countries in the Middle East that could say, all right, enough of the, religious-based governance. It's time for people-based governance and religion do your own thing.
Deity-based religions are definitely dying, but that we're just falling into new ones. I would say America is much more into the liberal versus conservative religions than they are any actual deity-based religions.
Explain that, because I don't quite follow.
So I think people are more committed to the tropes and the team ideas of who is on the left versus who is on the right, more than they care about whether someone is Christian or Muslim or something like that. And one of the things, there are a lot of black guys that hang out with Confederate people and go to Confederate, pro-Confederate rallies. And that confused me for quite a while, and then I eventually got it. It's just about your cultures and what you guys like to do together. It's not really this race-based thing. The religions are about what we are familiar with, and people are afraid of what is unfamiliar, and even if the familiar is very dangerous, they will stay in that because they're more comfortable in what they're familiar with. So it's just about your surroundings really being familiar to you. Does that make sense? So what we end up doing is this is one of the reasons why I complain to you guys a lot is because I'm going to save this for the come at me bro thing, but I feel as though you guys have a lot of the left narrative, and
I know you think that, and in my case in particular, you probably have a better argument. But where I disagree with you when you come at us on that, and again, I don't want to spoil these segment, is the idea that I don't listen to or pay attention to other viewpoints is just not true.
So I see. Here's the thing: is I don't. What we do as people is that we subconsciously still steer towards what is in our blinders and perspectives. Let me read something. I just finished handing a paper. I had to do the last thing for my dissertation. And I had to put
Congratulations on getting through that, by the way.
Thanks. I had to put a last thing where you're talking about threats to validity. And I get a lot of pushback in scholarly fields about what I say about what scholars are. So here's just a couple sentences I put towards the end of my paper. It says, while social sciences in this fashion seeks to include all the flaws as part of the human process and does not make hard conclusions, there does remain a common but dangerous threat to the validity of the methodology. That threat is the generally narrow perspective of groupthink and prejudices from the small population sample that would author and read this type of work. It is almost assured that the core issues are being missed. Because of the very bias of scholars and the scientific fields, we speak in a language and we have a perspective and we pull things from other people, and our vision and perspective is so narrow that the odds that we're right are almost non-existent. And the same thing is true for the left and the right-wing things that you see picked up. Media and what is printed is worse now than I would agree. It's worse now than it has ever been. Fake news is an absolute real thing. It's been done to me. I've had at least 10 articles written about me that had all kinds of claims that are completely untrue, that people just make up out of thin air because it gets clicks. And that is not different on TYT or MSNBC or RT or anywhere else. And so those are our new religions. And I'm not a member of either of those religions. And I get the attacks from both sides. And both sides literally are using the same words to me to say how they're not what the other side is. And I feel like I don't believe in horseshoe theory, but it almost feels that way, that I'm like right now, if Martin Luther King was alive, the left would destroy him.
Oh, well.
He says that race isn't real, judge people on the content of their character.
Right.
That's what I say, and I am ostracized for that.
You know, the way. All right. So I think I know what you're saying, and if you want me to give a stab at interpreting you and seeing if I get it right, give me a chance to respond, I'd be more than happy to do
Go
that.
for it.
All right. So you say race isn't real, and I know multiple people that have gotten very angry about that.
I do not say race isn't real.
I-
Every
I-
single biologist in the entire world says race isn't real.
Okay. My point.
Period.
Define when it's how you define the word. I think we can all agree.
No, it's
that there
not.
are,
No, it's not. Because any other definition other than DNA is already defined by another word.
All right. So you're going to say, all right. Then you know what? That I'm not going to try because I'm going to screw it up. Would you say that Black or African and Asian and Native American and European are different?
They're different ethnicities.
Different ethnicities. Okay, so there's where the problem comes in. The word race gets used when ethnicity should be.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is you're not born with ethnicity. So people are using race as something you're born with, so they don't mean ethnicity. They mean something you're born with.
All right, so you are born with an ethnicity. You are not born with a race other than human race.
No, you're not born with an ethnicity. You must participate.
Well, but there's something to your...
No, a black person in England and a black person raised in Japan and a black person raised in America and a black person raised in Africa, that's an English person, an American, a Japanese person, and an African.
So you're defined by your culture, not your...
Of course, that's all they know. Of course that's who they are. You tell me that most black people they don't identify as African Britons.
No, I love it. I love it when there's a Canadian or a British person who's black and they call them an African American because they don't want to say black.
They do it all the time. It's so preposterous.
Okay, they're not African and they're not
I know.
American, but you know, like I feel for you because I know how annoying it is when you say something and you're making a solid point, and your words are getting misinterpreted. But I also understand the flip side because I've heard you say things in text messages that we won't get into, where it comes out as you're saying, race isn't real, and it is a cultural thing. I think when you say social construct, you're saying it's a cultural thing, right?
It's just a fabricated
thing. Okay,
it's a fabricated categorization that cannot be defined.
But I'm 100% confident saying you would agree that in American culture, based on those constructs, there are people who are,
No, this argument is not even settled in the black community. The vast majority of actual black Americans would agree with me. It's just the people that have a microphone that would say something else. Again, everybody in the 60s was trying to eliminate the concept of race.
Okay, but you have argued, I remember arguing with you or discussing with you a couple of years ago when you said that, the policing practices in predominantly black communities were very different. And I said, it's an economic thing. And you said, well, there's dirt poor, completely white communities in West Virginia where the same oppression does not occur. Correct?
Yeah, because I'm talking about a system, how a system responds to those who have been categorized into the category of black.
And that's where the disconnect occurs, I think, when you make that argument.
Well, just because you've been put into a category does not mean anything.
Okay, but it does explain where your attempt to articulate it can get derailed.
Of course it does, because it requires you to think about it for a second.
I think I
don't know how to do that, and ultimately claims must be proven by the person making the claim. So what's often done to me is to say, prove to me, Michael, that I am wrong about the thing I have no evidence for, and I can't do that. So when you say I am black, I say, what does that mean, and where's your evidence that you're black? And no one's going to be able to articulate that because it doesn't exist.
And again, I'm reframing it and saying, I understand that, people of...
You can't define yourself as something you will not define. I have yet to have a single black person who identifies as being black actually explain to me what they mean when they say black. It's impossible.
You know what? when
Because
two
as
white
soon
guys
as,
have this argument.
yeah, but as soon it doesn't matter. I mean, who gives a fuck? I don't even care when they say two white guys. I'm done with the concept of it. It's not fucking real. So whether it has nothing to do with race, the simple fact is we can't do that with whiteness either. Nobody can do that with any race, because eventually what you end up saying is the black people are the people who think exactly like me, and that's not black.
So then, all right, what is your all right? So
I operate under a construct of blackness, which I think is more accurate, and which I think the best way to view it is that there was the old concept of white supremacy. So blackness would be the things that fight against power and supremacy. If you want to leave that concept, that would make it more of an ethnicity than it would be of a race. But it's really just something that has to be dropped, period. It's not real. I mean, like, you can't keep saying the earth is fucking flat. You know, you can't.
Well, I've never said that, but
no, I mean as an argument. That's literally the argument,
right.
that someone is black or someone is white or someone is fucking, I don't know, whatever race you want to use. It's like saying the earth is flat. There's that much evidence to the contrary.
So the pushback from that is going to be, so you're saying racism isn't real because race isn't real?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, but that's how it gets interpreted.
Yeah, that's why I say that race is real, racism is real, race is not.
Okay. See, all right, that was well said there. Sorry, I'm not trying to sound fun,
because race is a category, and the category is not accurately described, is not accurately applied to who you are. So it doesn't really mean anything, but the people that perceive you in this category, or the people who are put into this category, do have racism enact upon them. Yeah.
And that's where the communication breaks down, is when you say.
So that's where the understanding breaks down. I'm fucking clear.
Okay, but Mike, in your own words, to put you in a category, you're a scientist, and you are thinking in your scientific realm. And look, I grew up. I'm the son of a scientist. I grew up around scientists, and just because you're right doesn't mean you're understood. And
sure.
And you say, don't even try arguing that with me because you just admitted it. But that's where the breakdown is you make perfect sense to you, and most of the time you make perfect sense to me, and then sometimes I get a little like, okay, what exactly you're saying, and your science can be dead on, but the way it's interpreted and the way it comes across, and let me be fair, the way it's misinterpreted just leads to a derailment of the discussion.
Yeah, I just get upset because this shit's recorded. It's like, just rewind what I say, or half of it's written. Like, I'm not saying, you know.
Well, no, and look, I respect you, and I think the way you said it a minute ago was perfect. That race is a construct, but racism is a real.
Racism is an action. It's a verb.
An action of society based on things. The perfect example is Rwanda, right? Because Rwanda had an indigenous culture that got divided by oppressive colonialists who said, hey, you're part of this group now, you're part of this group now, based mostly on pigmentation, and a generation or two later, they would undermine and murder each other in massive numbers because of what was taught to them.
Yeah, but see how it's become a religion?
Culture.
It's just like God. There's absolutely no evidence, and I can't.
For God?
Yeah, zero. So I can't keep saying I can't prove your fabrication wrong. It's just, what do you want us to do? Yeah, so you're stuck in religion. If you keep believing that that the Bible is real, well, you're delusional. If you think that race is real, you're in a delusional religion. You are.
Okay, when it comes to religion, it's hard. We've talked about this enough tonight, and enough in the last couple of years.
People off.
Well, here's the funny thing. I occasionally try to piss people off. Occasionally, I just, whether I'm whatever, I'm dropping the gloves and looking for a fight. You're guilty of the same. I don't know who's guilty of it more. My guess is
me looking for a fight. I'm looking for a fight every 4 minutes.
Okay, so then you more than me. Okay, I do it rarely.
But I'm a fighter. Like, that is literally what this country has raised and invested millions of dollars into me, and I find it really shocking when people get surprised by that.
Well, and here's the thing: I'm generally not a fighter, but I'll do it. I mean, I don't look for conflict. I look for interesting things, and that leads to conflict. But occasionally, whether it's, you know, chemically influenced by the really shitty boxed Malbec that I'm drinking right now, or well, are you indulging in your favorite substance?
I did earlier, but I'm in my studio now, so I don't know what it would be like in here. It's a little small and cramped up. I'd have to smoke this bad boy out. Probably
I didn't identify the substance. Do you ever do edibles? I'm just curious. I don't know if that's your thing.
Oh, I mean, I prefer them. I mean, I have a I wouldn't say preference. I enjoy them, but they're like, it's just usually a little too much like hassle, because you have to eat a lot once you get a tolerance up, and then by the time your tolerance is up, it tastes like dog crap.
Well, my experience as an observer of people using edibles is not it's the lack of metering of use.
Well, that's
I know a lot of people,
that's rookie shit.
It's what tricky you said?
That's rookie shit. That's rookie shit.
Oh, rookie? No, I know a few.
You can't have a problem metering if you're not a rookie. It's not rocket science.
I know people who've got experience, maybe not in quantity, but in duration that goes beyond yours just based on age, who will have an edible and think, I don't feel shit. They'll have another one, and then it's like they did.
Eating an edible and saying I don't feel anything and eating another one is literally the number one rule not to do. Look it up. So that's why I say that I don't believe them.
All right.
It's the number one advice.
I know a few veterans who've made that rookie mistake in the last couple of years.
Well, I need to have conversations with them.
I'd say with usually entertaining results, but
certainly entertaining. But once you're eating a couple hundred milligrams, it just tastes so bad that it's like choking down liquid plant, and it's terrible.
All right, so the fact that you built your tolerance to that point, that's on you.
Yeah, it is on me. I'll agree.
You'll own that?
So yeah, I'll own that. So let me hit a couple more points before we hit the fun stuff.
All right.
You said your dad was a responsible gun owner, but yet he let you have access to it.
Yes, I did.
I just thought that you kind of contradicted yourself.
I mean, look, I was taught very young, like how you don't touch guns and whatever.
You know that how many kids were taught that same thing and then went to trust somebody, right?
I know that I didn't mess with them. All right.
No kid is a responsible gun owner, and I argue there's no such thing as a responsible gun owner, period. But
all right.
Just say it.
Well,
I thought it was
number
funny.
2. Go ahead.
You guys have a tendency to frame violence as if it's a rational response, and I really wish I could get that out of everybody's head. Violence,
as if it is a rational response?
Yeah,
or
like you can either way, that you can rationalize somebody out of it, or that they got rationalized into it. This is just not true. So when they say the ideas of saying like, well, what can we do to get this person to change their mind? How can we change society? This isn't something that's won in a war of ideas. They're having a biological breakdown. All violence is a biological breakdown that goes against everything human beings have evolved to do. So
all right. Let me. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to actually agree with you in a weird way. I was thinking about, like I said, I was thinking about the royal family shit and the tyranny of the Middle Ages and whatever, and I thought, people lined up with swords, clubs, spears, whatever the fuck, and ran to their likely death with nothing to benefit themselves or their loved ones at all because of what they were either convinced to do or forced to do at the fear of not doing it. So there's people committing violent acts with no rational reason for doing it. If I'm getting way too off topic, I apologize. But, I mean,
even when there's a rational one, the person will say, man, afterwards, like, man, I don't know why I fucking did that.
But when you deal with violence on the level of a teenager shooting up a school,
Sure, afterwards they often don't understand it, and they can't articulate even what they're talking about or their motivations. Because it's a biological breakdown, you can't articulate my fucking brain freaked out.
no, the only thing I think we totally disagree on is the level of medication that is designed to distract you from humanity.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you have any evidence that it's a negative.
Sorry, say that again.
You have evidence that the country has become drug saturated, but you don't have any evidence that it's a negative.
All right. I'll back off that, and I wish I could find out what. Again, if 99.9% of the people who are emotionally detached from their lives do nothing wrong, that 0.1% can do a lot of damage.
Of course, but so what? I don't understand the point.
The point is just that if...
Yeah, I mean, what would come first? The person having a biological issue that needs medication, or the medication as the causation? That's what I'm saying. You have no evidence that it's harmful. It could be reducing.
That's you know what? All right, that's well said. That's a very good point. Maybe if we didn't have that medication, school shootings would happen
Trust me,
3 times a day.
my opinions are purely based on the data. If the data goes a different way, I will fucking completely change.
I know that, and my only beef is that a lot of things that you're looking for data for, the data isn't available.
Sure, so we don't make conclusions until then.
But when the data isn't attainable...
Sure, what data isn't attainable?
Is it?
What data isn't?
Well, the data, what would happen if we had a non-antidepressant fueled society?
Oh, we could totally study that. Absolutely. So you would have the correlation of people who were on these drugs and weren't to violent crime, and again, they are vastly more likely to be victims of a crime than to commit a violent crime, even the medicated. So there's even no implied evidence to go that way.
I'll back off on this after I say that I will try to look into and I'll try to do it in a way that
I'll
you
agree.
find...
I mean, you can find that evidence, but the problem is that all crime has been dropping since the 90s. So your only correlation is going to be a negative correlation. It's just impossible. I mean, the only other way would be...
Other than if I isolate the data point of school shootings perpetrated by people of a certain age.
Sure, but if you're talking about with medications, then you just don't know what the problems is with the other people. So an example of this I'll say that's easy to find is in Colorado. There was a lot of scam science coming out that was saying that like 2.3% of the population who was pulled over in traffic accidents in Colorado had cannabis in their system, which was growing up, and therefore cannabis was causing crashes. Now, for one, there's no data that ever gives that anywhere else, so that would be an outlier, and that's why it got a lot of attention. But when you do that, you don't have the reference point. So if 2.3% of the general population, or 2.3% of the people involved in crashes in Colorado have cannabis in their system, but 10.3% of the drivers do, then you have a negative correlation.
Agreed. And I mean, look, I as an engineer who was a PhD dropout in pharmaceutical sciences, I know how you can manipulate data to fit your narrative.
Almost anything you want, yeah.
Yeah, I mean... And I've got some stories about that from why I dropped out of grad school. When I was told, you need to make the data say this, and I said, but the data doesn't say that. And my advisor pulled me in the room and said, you need to make sure this experiment looks valuable. And I'm like...
Yeah, he's trying to get you your certification, man.
She actually
she was trying to get you to pass the damn class. Okay?
No, there's a lot more to the story.
Well, a lot of it, I would say, is that way. They want you to get the shit done.
That is true. All right, so let's. All
right. So last thing.
Next point. Yep.
And it's just a point, I guess. I don't understand how Americans completely dismiss the reports of the soldiers and the citizens that are over in Israel on the lines right now. And I'm going to we're transition that into the come at me, bro thing. But
right.
I've been historically very supportive of Palestine. But
all right.
I want to always, I think our biases and our prejudices are our greatest enemy. So we have to constantly be fighting those. And when I fight those in the latest thing, this shit is not making sense to me. So, to transition into that, let's go into the Whiskey Congress. Come at me, bro.
All right. Well, mine's.
I'm going to go first. This is natural.
All right. Go ahead. Go.
So come at me, bro. How can you, as a podcast and as a presenter of media, be able to be different when the only tool for stories we have is the mainstream narratives?
All right. So I don't know what I can do to get more of a diverse narrative than listening to mainstream media, both right and left, listening to everything from Patriot Channel to CNN to Fox News to MSNBC to podcasts like, Abby Martin is someone who I really find fascinating as a podcast guest. I've heard her on a few different shows. I don't think I'm as narrow-minded as I'm apparently.
Not about
across.
you.
All right. All right. So in general,
about where will the data come from? It's like the whole thing with solutions coming from within the system. Solutions do not come from within the system. So if what we know is long been true that printed information is propaganda, how do we evolve past that? And I was talking about those embassy riots because the way I hear all the general talk about this, whether it's left or right, doesn't seem to give a shit about what the actual rational data points is. So even what we're saying with that situation, so I heard you guys, it was mainly Steve, but I don't want to talk about him, but I'm going to give you the blame for it.
I was going to say
I
would yell at him when he talks about you.
Yeah, about shooting that they were shooting these people at the border, at the fence, and you guys were presenting it in a way that I have seen the left present it, like it was a protest. This wasn't a protest. This was a national border. So if you are talking about people massed at our borders, our southern border, trying to run and get over the wall, you're goddamn right we're going to kill them. This is a nation, and there are lines that you do not cross, and the same thing goes for Israel. I do not buy the narrative at all that this has something to do with the embassy. They've been doing things like this for a long time, and to think that some kid is going to go lay down their life because of an embassy being there, that just doesn't make any fucking sense. And there's tons of Palestinians that live in Israel. They're not out there protesting the embassy. It's the only ones on the outside. So there's nothing that indicate that those protesting has anything to do with bombing or with the embassy. And there's no reason to, I think, any nation to accept the possibility of people running over your fucking national walls.
Okay, so the only pushback I'm going to give you is the idea that to compare what's gone on in Palestine and Israel, or gone on in Jerusalem, where you have multiple nations that feel that Jerusalem is theirs, and
and this is Americans talking about how other people have a homeland right. Get the fuck out of here. That is awfully ironic all the time.
What do you mean?
When a bunch of Americans are pro-Palestinian talking about they have a right to their homelands, like this is our fucking homeland.
I was joking.
You know? It's so, I'm like, this is the most ironic thing I've ever heard.
The one thing that I was glad that we talked about was that the narrative is generally that Muslims or Israelis and the Muslim nations have been at war for thousands of years. You just can't end it. It's really 70. And it's really
sure,
based
for different
on
reasons. Yeah, but one of the reasons there when it comes to Afghanistan and stuff is they have a long history in their culture because they're not an instant gratification culture.
And there's a whole bunch of misconceptions there, right? The Russian invasion of Afghanistan was really about gaining resources, and
that's all the invasions are about.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, all right, I'll derail the whole conversation if I allow that, or either of us allow that to happen. But yeah, I was just saying, I don't think, if we said that the protests occurred specifically because of the embassy, I don't think that was what we were trying to say. What we were trying to say is the fact that Israeli soldiers were
You goddamn right.
All right, well.
That is a national border. Can you imagine? I'm sorry, I am anti-military, I am anti-policing, but if our borders were
look, what do you know about military policing?
Right. You can put me on the wall, again, if we need to, believe me.
For those who don't know, Mike is a 4-year Marine and 11-year veteran of the Baltimore Police, so that was entirely sarcasm. The 90% of the people, 99% of the people who listen to our show know who you are. I actually have a few guys that I know from the Cleveland comedy scene who think I'm super cool because I talk to you on a regular basis. So thank you for that.
They should raise their standards.
Exactly. You have accomplished the impossible, Mike. You've made me look cool.
I've been trying to be charitably making people cool for a long time.
That is charity. All right. So my come at me, bro, was going to be define mental health, because a lot of us want to say mental health is you can't be mentally healthy and just indiscriminately kill people based on whatever. So how do you define mental health?
Yeah, I would agree that, it's almost a necessary prerequisite that someone that's committing murder is going through a mental illness, if you want to say that way. What I think is wrong is viewing it as an illness. It'd be more correctly to view them as an episode or a series of episodes or a condition, because we're all mentally ill from the basic standpoint that this can happen to any of us at any point in time. So you can have a tumor, you can have some kind of injury, you can just have your biology flip out because some gland goes wrong and your adrenaline floods your system and you become crazy, or you can ingest something that you have a reaction to. We are all prone to this at any point in time. That's why there's no such thing as a responsible gun owner, because we're apes with death sticks that are all fucking mentally ill. And that, yes, there are guns here, and I will use them if I need to use them, and I completely understand that I am a hypocrite for having guns and saying there's no such thing as a responsible gun owner. Maybe I'm not being a hypocrite. What I'm saying is I'm an irresponsible gun owner like everybody else. But
that's some inception shit there, Mike.
I mean, I get that. I get the whole thing. But I think we have been extremely lucky that people that obtain my skill sets and higher have been largely selected because they don't freak out. If we were the type of people that freak out, if you think that 100 and some people dead in Vegas is impressive, you haven't seen shit until somebody with real skill does something.
I mean, so that's the sort of thing you say that will get spun in the wrong direction. I won't do that. But I'm
telling you, if I go crazy,
you're right. No,
167 is laughable.
If you wanted to inflict mass destruction, I have no doubts that you would do it far better than some dude in Vegas with a bump stock.
You wouldn't even know it was me. You might get me like my 10th one in.
All right.
I'm in for 30 seconds and gone. I'll take out 130 seconds to get the fuck out of there.
That's a pretty dark way.
But this is the skill set that at least 5,000 people in this country have.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean,
we're just lucky that in order to make that kind of training, generally, I think these people are the people that don't have are very less likely to do that.
And so this is why. All right, you've fought with me on this before. This is why I say magazine restrictions are a good idea. Because with your skills, it don't matter. To some fucking dope with
I agree. I'm not going to push you hard.
You fought with me on that.
Yeah, I just don't think it will end up being worth the effort in the end when we can commit the same amount of effort to things that would be much more effective.
All right, this is one of those things where I think, as a pretend wannabe responsible gun owner, I can say that's something I'll give up because it might save a life here or there.
There's just so many of them out there though already.
What's that?
There's so many out there already. It's almost like the same thing where you're just flooded with the environment. So even if we stop 30 round magazines now, I mean, they're still going to be out there for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if you could find some in a bag of mine somewhere.
You know, here's well, I was in West Virginia for the weekend, as I told you. I heard some shit. Well, let's anything else you want to go through? We were well over an hour 20 now. Well,
oh, I go long. I don't. You guys peter out.
I don't give a shit. I'll keep rolling.
Go on for forever. But so I did propose to you to go ahead and do a song.
You did not propose to me.
I did propose to you. I don't know why you're so nervous about it. It seems I don't even know what I did with my notes. Hold on, I closed my thing. All right, so I was talking about possibly doing songs where we went back.
Oh yeah.
And
I was thinking you proposed marriage.
Jesus, we already got that joke. So, it didn't make it funny. So I've been fascinated lately. One of my big things is on YouTube. There's all these people that listen to different music that they haven't listened to and then review it for the first time. There's one Vin and Story, Hectic, Lost in Vegas. There are three of them that I listen to, and I really like. This is my new thing. I enjoy it so damn much that now it's got me into music more because I'm watching these people, especially when they listen to Korn and Slipknot, who are two bands that I really grew up intimately with, and kind of still am huge fans of, and their songs have been a huge part of my life. So to see these people reviewing them, it's like my new favorite thing now is if you watch, especially when it's like hood-like dudes. So people have never listened to any heavy metal at all or something, and then they put in Metallica or like Master of Puppets or something, and you slowly see them start to head nod, and they can't help it, you know. And it's just like, this is so fucking awesome. Like, this is the same thing that happened to me when I was 12. You know, the first time I heard One from Metallica, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it doesn't matter like who they are, even though they've been in this different culture, they've really adapted to this. And Slipknot and Korn and Metallica are like these bands that a lot of these guys have grown to appreciate. So that's why music has become this weird thing for me now, and I wanted to go over something. So to do the same thing to you, I proposed that you would listen to a newer Slipknot song called Kill Pop. All right. And there's a couple of things about this that I'll tell you after you tell me what you thought about it. But so we know it's set up. Kill Pop is a song by Slipknot. Slipknot is an Iowa-based heavy metal band. Their singer in my opinion, there's two heavy metal bands that rule the scene of all time in history, and that's Slipknot and Pantera. And they're definitely like up there to me legendarily to things, and they're coming out with a new album.
Slipknot, to me, I know them a little bit. Duality is probably my favorite Slipknot song.
That's their most famous song.
Yeah, and that's probably why I know them best, that song best. I recently became, I won't say recently, in the past, I don't know, 5 years, I really started to respect Metallica. Here's where our age difference.
Oh, they're great. Metallica.
They're phenomenal. They're phenomenal.
Old Metallica.
Mike, when I was in high school, if you were walking around in a Metallica, all right, Beavis and Butthead were caricatures of dudes I went to high school with.
Agreed. Me too.
So, well, I was dealing with it in real time.
Yeah, I mean, gotcha.
I saw these guys, I'm like, you fucking wastoids. And here's the thing, Metallica, fucking awesome musicians, great songs. One of the things I do when I write articles for Whiskey Congress, and shameless plug, yeah, or am doing other late night work, I will do, I think exactly what you're describing. I will literally put on a playlist on YouTube and just rock out to that while I'm writing or researching or, you know, goofing off on the internet. And Metallica, Enter Sandman is something, I know it's another very famous song, but it's a great fucking song. And one of my favorite Metallica things is actually the song Ecstasy of Gold.
Did you say Enter Sandman?
Yes.
I drop out before then.
Okay.
Yeah. What's the last album for me?
Okay.
I don't know.
But,
I have to look it up. Let's see.
Yeah, they get a lot of abuse for, you know, they get beat up for falling off. But do you know the song Ecstasy of Gold? It is the song that is in the gunfight at the end of the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
No.
Yeah, I'm old. Anyway, Metallica does an instrumental version of that is just plain fucking awesome. So that's my, if you feel like checking something out, YouTube, Metallica, Ecstasy of Gold, and just listen to them jam out. It's amazing. They were great musicians.
So, they are now. They're kind of back on it now. Their last two albums have been pretty good.
In that in that era of music, there was, Metallica ends up being great. And there were so many bad bands with that look of the.
You didn't like Whitesnake.
They were awful. And so was White Lion, and so was Great White. In fact, they were all the same fucking band, and they're awful. Just awful.
Well, see, I caught the tail end of that when I was growing up. So
I know.
when I heard Metallica, I was like, "Wah!"
Exactly. So, look, Tawny Katane crawling across the top of a Ferrari, hot as shit. Not denying it. But musically, they sucked. Whereas Metallica, looking back, were great musicians and great lyricists. So anyway,
totally agree.
If you want to bring some Slipknot into there, I'm cool with Slipknot.
Well, I wouldn't consider Metallica the level of heavy that Slipknot is. I would
agree.
consider them one step down in the genre of.
What do you think of Disturbed?
I used to like them a lot. They're theatrical, so.
What about Blur?
I don't know who they are. I generally like metal that I find believable.
All right.
Right. So while Disturbed is really good, they're all like high school theater people, and they sing songs about like kind of Megadethy songs about demons coming in and religious overtones, and I'm like, nah.
Can I brag about my nephew for a minute?
Sure.
So my nephew, who obviously I love him, he's my nephew. I went to his graduation in West Virginia this weekend. So literally, I mentioned the drive, fly to Ohio, drive to West Virginia, drive back the same day. This kid has become a Morgantown, West Virginia sensation. He, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I bought him a wah-wah bar for his guitar. And he goes, he got a guitar, and he played some sports, and he did some other stuff. He got asked to do a guitar solo at his high school graduation, which I thought, okay, cool, but whatever. You're graduating from Morgantown High School. They showed me a video, like, a couple months before that. He literally was doing a guitar solo with his band and did the whole Jimi Hendrix play behind his head thing. Now, maybe that's not as amazing as I think it is. I have no musical talent whatsoever. But he did that, and the crowd went nuts. I'm like, fucking A, this is my nephew, and he's Jimi Hendrixing behind his head. I'm not bragging about my nephew on our shows, and I will stop. But
that's okay.
I was so amazed that he was doing that. What's that?
Live vicariously. Have at it.
Yeah, exactly. Live vicariously. I'm just bragging on the kid. I was so amazed with his doing that. And again, maybe it's not as next level as it appears to someone like me with no musical talent. But watching him do that on YouTube, it was like, wow.
Playing the guitar well is difficult, period.
And doing it backwards must be tougher.
Yeah, definitely harder.
All right, any more musical?
So I'll just for this song, so people know, it's according to when you hear it, it's like it's presented as a parallel to like somebody giving their lover a drug that would kill them, and seeing that as a way to get that person to love you, but even though that drug is going to hurt them, you both end up hurting in the end. But according to Corey Taylor, it's really a metaphor for a love and hate, with his love and hate for the music industry. And so I don't have a problem with that. With the metaphor, the way it's laid out, it can really be applied to any kind of addictive things that people are doing in a loving relationship. And one of the reasons why I really like this is a new album. This is the only album that Slipknot has with their new drummer. And the new drummer is it's so weird. He appeared with Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. It's where this drummer comes from. And he is wicked, this new drummer that has a sound. So I wanted to play just a little clip, and we'll see how well it comes off. And you just got to listen to this drummer for a second. This is a clip. Just a little clip there. Everybody should turn into this video to see it and watch that drummer just shred. That whole album he shreds on. It's amazing.
You were jamming out the whole time for that word.
I jam. If you catch me jamming out, it's only going to most likely be a handful of bands. It's going to be Rage, Metallica, System of a Down, Korn, Slipknot, or did I say Nine Inch Nails? And that's about it.
You did not. They're awesome too. So you're not a Disturbed guy or a Blur guy?
No. I definitely. I think I'm probably just because I'm more grungy. I think that's kind of the influence of growing up in the '90s. That I don't like any polished sounds. So that's about as polished as I can get. So like Jack White is probably my favorite guitar player, hands down. And
all right.
It's completely just.
So you're a Dave Grohl guy.
I mean, I don't like. I like him as a drummer for Nirvana, but I don't like him in Foo Fighters. It's way too polished.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I don't like Poppy. I like people that.
Look, that's where I get in trouble with music. Is if it's too poppy, I lose it. Then sometimes I come back to it later. I'm like, all right, I appreciate why people like this. It was just too popular in its time.
And I like lyrics that challenge you. I like things that reach down, like Master of Puppets from Metallica, masterful lyrically. I think a lot of Slipknot stuff is that way too, just lyrically, just masterful.
The song you said you come up with a song. You were obviously going there. I came up with the Bad Wolves.
But what did you think? You didn't say what you thought of Kills Pop.
It was cool. I like it. I did not know it until today. One of my flaws as a music analyst is it just kind of like gets into my head, and then sometimes I have to listen to it like 3 or 4 times for it to actually break in. I've embarrassed myself.
I think you have to listen to it that many times to start to appreciate its subtleties and stuff.
Well, sometimes it takes a few more. I've had a few songs that I didn't get until like a few years ago that I've listened to for 20 years. I'm like, oh, that's actually a great lyrical.
Are you one of the people that just realized that Pink Floyd's great?
No, but I didn't realize that the song In the Air Tonight that he was saying, oh Lord, not come on.
Come on, what?
Yeah, I did not get the song In the Air Tonight until like 2 years ago, despite the fact that it was in my life for 25 years. I loved it. And Eminem fucking said it flat out 10 years ago. In fact, no, that song's 30 years old, probably, at least 25. So yeah, I'm not the greatest music analyst, and my music nerdiness or music lack of knowledge is coming out as the shitty ballback from the.
Okay, so I get the point. I understand, and you definitely chose.
But it's not that I don't enjoy it. Like I said, I will. My music appreciation usually comes from a movie. So if it appears in a movie, like not that long ago, I was listening to Only a Memory by the Smithereens. I had recently watched Bull Durham, which neither of those things probably make sense.
So many cultural references that I can't keep up with. Okay.
I know. All right, man.
And your song, which is definitely one of those songs. As soon as you
check out the Smithereens. They're probably too mellow. If you're a mellow metal guy, the Smithereens won't be up your alley. But they're a good band. You ever listen to Midnight Oil?
Yeah, of course. I think so. That makes sense.
Okay.
I had to listen to that, right?
Again,
it's a classic album, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's classic to you.
I've had to hear it somewhere though.
Midnight Oil. I mean, they were. I'll text you a couple of Midnight Oil songs, or at least one in particular that you'll like.
All right, I'll try it. We'll see if it's any more of these ones. Like when you sent me that you wanted me to listen to somebody covering Zombie.
Oh yeah,
I was like, you are insane. So my first rule coming into this is whenever I hear somebody covering Zombie, it's like my first rule is don't do that.
Why?
Because you're not gonna be able to sing like her.
You're right. She was awesome. She was fucking amazing. And I like female vocalists who can just fucking rock out. I like that. I like Evanescence. Bring Me to Life by Evanescence, and I know it's very mainstream, but I love that song. It's one that I
love that poppy rock.
It is. I love it. And the song Zombie by Cranberries is great. And then Bad Wolves give it a different sound. did you like? Oh, you're not a Disturbed guy, but when Disturbed redid "Sound of Silence," I loved it until it was overplayed to the point where I couldn't take it anymore.
I don't know.
But
I don't know what that song is.
All right. All right, so last question, or last musical thing I will bring up, and you can keep going if you want, but Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly are coming to Cleveland as co-headliners next week, and I'm going to try to get tickets. Would that interest you? Or,
you should go to see Dropkick Murphys.
I love Dropkick. I've seen them before.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's more of an event, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. But Dropkick and Flogging Molly co-headlining is interesting. I will try to go if I can get a ticket. I will not be in the mosh pit. I'm a little old and out of shape for that shit, but I will fuck up a kid or two before it gets proven.
Oh, jeez. The only two that we have coming here, I know 9 Inch Nails is about to go on tour, and I would like to try and get that, but sometimes these bigger bands, I just don't like trying to get into that experience, and they're all expensive. And then Slipknot's going on tour next year, and we're going to have to go do that, me and my daughter and wife.
I can't believe you take your daughter to Slipknot.
Oh, she's dying to go.
I'm sure she, when I was a grad student at Ohio State in '95, I think 9 Inch Nails came through, and the number of arrests in Columbus, Ohio, during the 9 Inch Nails concert was the number was shocking to me at the time. Now, granted, I was a naive 24-year-old kid or 23-year-old kid. But a few friends of mine went to the event, and they said that it was an event to behold. And the fact that they were doing that in 1995 and they're still touring today says something.
Well, I bet the show is even better, but there's no way there's going to be a lot of injuries. We're all like 35 and older now. So
the arrest I remember talking about was a dude getting a beach in the fucking. My friend said literally like he had to step around a dude getting blown in the walkway down trying to get back to his seat, and the police didn't think that was an appropriate.
I think that the police committed the crime there.
I agree with you completely. That's why I became a Democrat. I've done that in my stand-up act. I said, Bill Clinton got vilified for getting a blowjob at the Oval Office, saying he disgraced the Oval Office. I'm like, bullshit. That's exactly why you get to the Oval Office.
Yes, that's true. That is what power is often, right? So,
well, I didn't think it's power.
But when I watched the video that when I looked up the song, I actually watched a live version that was on the Late Late Show, which was pretty cool to see it live, and I thought they did a good job. He sounds a bit like Eddie Vedder at first, but
the Wolves?
yeah, whoever's singing the Bad Wolves guy, he sounds a bit like Eddie Vedder. But I was like, at that point in the stage, so does Dolores O'Riordan. What's her name?
Dolores O'Riordan, yeah.
O'Riordan. And then as he goes on, I'm waiting for it, and everybody should know what you're waiting for if you're listening to this song. Like, when's he gonna hit the note? And he can't hit the note. So
you can.
He doesn't even try. So I mean that was part of my problem with covering it. But I was really happy that you chose the song "Zombie" because of what it's about. It's about the IRA and the oppression and terrorism that took place in Ireland and England. And it's particularly linked to a bombing, but it doesn't matter the individual incident, the overall of what the IRA in England is going through. I thought it's very much like the American Revolution, but this is a good example of how narratives are. The IRA is seen as this criminal organization. They do all these bad things. They are internationally known as terrorists, and yet there is no distinguishable articulable difference between the IRA and the American revolutionaries. So, let's think about how that is for where our biases are. And this song may have actually helped inspire the IRA to reduce violence because they went into a ceasefire pact shortly after this song, which is basically a criticism towards them because they killed kids. And also in this song, Dolores O'Riordan was supposed to record on this song with them, but she died the day that they were supposed to record.
Right. That's the brutal part about it. That's how I came across it, across the remake. I was like, fuck. And that's one of the sad things about music today is I listen to stuff from my, the music from my growing up years, and like, Dear Prince, he's dead. Fuck. Tom Petty, I was a Tom Petty fan, he's dead. And just one after another.
See, the older generation's always complaining. I mean, come on. I grew up with, I've lost all of the grunge singers except for Eddie Vedder. Does he count?
Yes, he counts, but you're right.
Does not count being in the club of good singers. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Cornell's still alive, so all
look,
we have is Chris Cornell. That's legit.
And I mean, I actually, Nirvana was, to me, Nirvana and Pearl Jam are what saved music to me because...
Wow. That whole only one good album that Pearl Jam made saved it for you, huh?
The 80s...
You must have played 10 over and over and over again.
The shitty 80s hair bands just were... I hated them so much. And I blame Bon Jovi and Van Halen for being good, but inviting those fuckers to the party.
That's so funny. I blame Motley Crue.
There, Bobby Crew's in that shit band. They're awful too. Girls.
I used to rock that out until I found better stuff.
I can't believe we just devolved into a white guy music 10 years apart age. I'm 47. We're about 10 years apart, right?
Yes, I'm 38.
All right. 38. Oh, 38. Only 9 years. Yeah, I'll own that. I don't know if this was maybe one of the shows you listened to or even talked about it, but I was in a sort of a quick serve barbecue joint out here about 5 weeks ago, and I hadn't shaved in a while, and the white hair and the facial hair was coming through as white, and this 16-year-old black girl gave me the senior discount. I did not take that well.
Why not? Take any discount you can.
It was 44 cents. My dignity is worth about 48.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And I don't blame the girl. To her, I'm sure I looked ancient, and I'm sure some person gave her a hard time for not getting the discount. When I saw that, I was like, that was just a punch in the dick.
Well, I know. I'll tell you about all my problems of getting carded for tobacco.
Fuck off. All right. On that note, brother, I've had a lot of fun tonight.
It's late for you too, boy.
It is late.
It's 1 a.m.
It's late for me. It's after midnight, and I have to pack up and get on the road and head back to Ohio tomorrow.
Well,
but I really enjoyed this. Let me do my stuff, and we'll talk. We'll catch up maybe tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, on Friday.
Okay. This has been a presentation, a collaboration of Whiskey Congress and half of Nuance.
And half of Nuance. Love it. Thank you. All right. Good night, brother. Take care.
Dude.
How was that? I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I always have fun talking to Jim. And I really hope I did not piss off too many people talking about race. I really think that is the next evolution in kind of the social constructs that we have to take. And if anyone, it opens up the idea that I think if anyone listens to this and challenges these ideas and wants to talk about those things, we should do the same thing that we just did here and have a phone call, discuss these things openly. I want to change my mind, and I want to understand the situation more thoroughly. As much as I have studied it, this is where the conclusion I'm at. I'm pretty confident in it being the case. So let's either improve my argument or in either way, whether it's towards your side or towards giving me better positions and arguments to defend what I think is an absolute necessity, that we drop this social construct of race and division. And I thoroughly understand that many people have an identity, that part of their personal identity is in their race, and there's just nothing I can do about it. I know that's going to be hard to drop that, and I can only try to empathize or sympathize. I'm never going to understand that. It's just not going to happen. But my post-policing life is dedicated to this idea that in order to serve justice for Tamir Rice, the only way it can look like any kind of a semblance of what justice could be is that this situation does not happen again. That you make reforms like Amber laws or something like that actually try and do something. And the evidence says that the biggest thing we have to do is break these prejudices and biases that we have. And on a personal level, on a systemic level, yeah, you guys should know my argument. But on a personal level, we have to break these biases and self-critical analysis. It's the only way that we're going to do that. And the biggest key to doing that is to stop the damn bullshit othering that we do. These categories were imposed on us and they're not real. So to help this, I Remember Media is a publishing company that is working with me to get the products out. Just volunteers. Nobody's making any money. This is the only way to get these things out. We'll see. We're going to have Patreons going to try and support more podcasts, so I can try to do this full time, dedicate my research to getting these different discussions out there, hoping that we can engage more with your ideas and have a way to have people actually listen with an audience, because when you're not going for clickbaits and you're going for substance, no one listens to this. And if anyone that's listened to a lot of Nuance episodes with me and Roberto and the original Nuance, this is something we talk about and lament all the time, that just you can't, if it bleeds, it leads, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to find solutions and bring people together, and that's just not a very popular narrative at the moment, but we can change that if we all talk to one another and become more of a family and feel each other as brothers and sisters, and just don't allow it to be any other way. So very soon, I Remember Media website will be launching. I have to do a lot of work on it. Other people are doing a lot of work on it. My wife is doing a lot of work on it. So once we have it set up and ready to go, it should be within a month. We'll have everything together and laid out in a clean format that everyone can see. And I really hope that you guys help me do this. I want to do it. It's kind of the last thing that I have before I just try and find a regular job, which has been almost impossible when you're a whistleblower. But like, I have to do something, and it's been years of kind of really not getting anywhere, and that's not your fault. I don't think that that's my fault. I think that we are stuck in a narrative that isn't talking, and if this is the only way I can think of now for us to stick together, to not feel that we're alone, to not feel that the only ones trying to be rational and bring each other together is a bunch of crazy tiny people. The silent majority is a silly trope that's been used around in a lot of contexts, but this is another time where I think it is true. The Republicans were certainly right about it being the case with Trump then, and there's no reason why it's a crazy concept or conspiracy kind of thing. It's just the way it is. So please stay tuned. Please keep following on. Spread things with your friends. The only real way we have of making any money, these things cost thousands. Maybe grab Crimes and Punishments for me and give it to family members, or try and get me to come and speak at a school, which information will be on the new I Remember Media website. Something like that. Anything you can do that to help. Which is a weird thing. It's what I'm thinking right now is just that I get a lot of emails and phone calls and messages where people are asking me what they should be doing, and I feel like I should have answers, but I'm really at this point where the next step is you guys. There's just, I can't continue to talk to myself. Like, those conversations have to be carried on in the very hard environments to carry them in on. And if you need a book, that's why I did a book. If you need the audiobooks for somebody, that's why I did the audiobooks, whichever format we can. And if you want to help out with translating some material or something, we could totally do that. This isn't about anybody making money. We're not going to make any money. And if you help, there's not going to be any money involved. But hopefully 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line, we'll know that we were on the right side of history, and we're trying to make the difference and can stand proud and know that when people were calling for the heads of our brothers and sisters, that we called for their hearts and their minds. Like most cops, the emotions felt when pinning the badge on my uniform for the first time was a source of immense pride, but also a shocking reality to the complication of performing a duty under the weight of such power and responsibility. The callousness of veterans cops and the braggadocious masculinity of the streets are immature expressions of the generations of trauma enacted on our brothers and sisters from a system oppressing us all. My internal fights with policing, whistleblowing, scholarly endeavors, reform efforts, and politics have failed in exhausting fashion.
And what I'm trying to say is that we are looking at people who are doing nothing new, and if we focus on the actions, then we can fix the things for next time. Because when you focus on people, we end up thinking we can chop the head off, they put a new person in and something will change. But if we don't focus on the methodologies and the institutions, then we will be totally missing
somebody, put them in a prison cell, do the paperwork, go back out and do it again. So what we really need is to change the incentives and disincentives so that no matter what the role, we're still going towards that objective that actually serves you.
More occupation, more vehicles, if your answer continues to be violent, because we have to understand that everything about policing is inherently violent. I have come in there with authority and told you what you will do.
I believe one of the reasons behind my struggles is that I had not laid out a consistent and intertwined philosophy of what in the hell I was trying to say. For the philosophical foundations of crime and punishment to be ushered into the 21st century, a reimagination of our institutions is necessary. Building off the famous works of Cesar Beccaria, I construct those pathways to the Enlightenment period of justice. Free will, sanctuary cities, gun control, eyewitness testimony, incarceration, and more must all work together for a prosperous society. Learning these lessons has been a brutal journey for me, and is unlikely to be an easy one for you, but it is one that we owe to the future, to make a safer world for our children to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Crimes and Punishments in the 21st Century by yours truly, Michael Wood, is most conveniently ordered from the evil empire Amazon, because we are in that 21st century after all. For the enhanced and expanded audiobook, check out Audible. In the meantime, the philosophical half of Crime and Punishments, all 40-some chapters and then some, is being presented as a free podcast from iMember Media at imembermedia.com and will be available on all major platforms and direct from the publisher. Pause the video or see the links in the notes and prepare for the challenge and adventure of self-critical thought.
Generally dry day on Wednesday with sunny periods. However, there may be more cloud in the southeast where it will be breezier. After a chilly start, it will be mostly dry on Thursday with some sunny spells. However, it may be rather cloudy in the southeast. Patchy rain will arrive in the north.